Thank you all for coming tonight to see Dan Thompson. I really appreciate it. It was overwhelming, the amount of people that messaged me to see Dan speak. A little background on how I know Dan. Back in 2000, I studied with Nelson Shanks. I was his monitor, but the class had 50 people in it. So I went, and I used to hear about this guy, Dan Thompson, and Dan just won the Draper Prize. And I said, oh my God, that guy is insane. I loved his painting. It was a self-portrait. So I left Nelson's class, and I was sad about that because to me, Nelson is the best, uh, the greatest painter, for me. I don't know. I loved Nelson's work so much. And I was sad to leave, but it was just so big, that class. So I went to the New York Academy. I met Dan and I said, and I told him the story. And the rest is history. I took Dan, I guess, for a couple of years at the New York Academy, went over to the Art Students League. He started the Grand Central Academy. I talk too fast. Let me not do the New York Minute. Back up. So after the New York Academy, Dan was one of the founders of the Grand Central Academy with Jacob Collins, Kate Lehman, Michael Grimaldi. They then, I guess they had different styles. And what I loved about Dan and Michael and Kate is that they were very open to progressive, like a progressive movement in art. Everybody had their own style. They didn't think that everything should look like Rembrandt, everything should be done the same way. You should look like your teacher's work, which a lot of academies at that time, and even now, they look like their teacher's work. They were very open to being individual, and I really love that about them. So they started the Janus School of Collaborative Art up in Harlem, and I guess then Dan moved to, Dan, you take over from here because I don't know the timeline from there. But let me introduce Dan Thompson, everybody. So take over from here, Dan, please, because I could talk all night.
No problem. I was just for having me in the chat room and for the guys getting me.
Yeah, you just froze there for a minute.
Okay, yeah. So I've got my internet plugged in on the wire, so I don't know why sometimes it doesn't seem to come through as well as it should, but let me know. I'm happy to repeat myself. This is the world of Zoom. What can you do, right?
Yeah,
So I want to thank you again, Nancy. It's delightful to be here, and I'm really flattered that we have so many people coming out to listen to what I have to say. And I know that you're operating, you're really volunteering a ton of time for the Portrait Society of America. And so, hats off to them for putting together such a robust organization over the years, and also to nod to the passing of Ed Jonas last year. I remember hearing Ed lecture in 1991 at an old entity called the National Portrait Society, and the gist of his argument was sort of lifting yourself out of the station of being a student to being a professional, and not only a working professional, but a flourishing professional. So, we're always going to be appreciative of Ed. So that's that. Let's see. I don't really have so much to add to the bio. What I wanted to do, since you asked me, was I wanted to show some slides and just say a few things about, not so much about me, but more about Incaminati and about teaching. But I did wind up collating a lot of stuff, so I'm not going to run out of images. One thing I'm not really good at is being an editor, so I've got a lot of images, and if you want me to,
I want to see them all. You guys are in for a treat if you haven't seen some of Dan's work. It's pretty prolific. He changes. He doesn't stay the same. I love that about you, Dan.
Thank you, Nancy. Well, I'm going to start rolling, and before I begin the gist of the conversation, I wanted to start with a shameless plug, because for a change, I'm in the megalomaniac chair, and I'm usually on Nancy's side of the fence, so I have to mind the bio and ego and everything else from the speaker. So if you want to join the festivities this weekend for facial expression drawing, feel free to reach out to the New York Academy, where I'll be joining with several of my friends who I work with on occasion. They're all wonderful, delightful people from across the country. And that's what this imagery is for. So shameless plug out of the way. Let's get started. This really goes back to really kind of meeting Nancy at the New York Academy, and then further back than that. And I wanted to start with Nelson because Nelson really changed so much in my life, just as he did with Nancy. And there's so much to say, it's almost impossible to pack it into a few lines. But I thought of a few things that I could say about him. And the first is having had the great honor of speaking at Nelson's funeral some years back, which was 2015, September 19th of 2015, I spoke at his funeral. And they asked me, I think Mark Mostovoy asked me to gather an image of Nelson and I together, and I couldn't find one. This was the closest that I came to a picture of the two of us in the same room, in the same studio. So I'm just over Nelson's shoulder, and there he is painting. And, you know, of course, what can you say? He was the complete package. He really was an artist straight out of the timeless age of Velázquez and the height of the great portrait painters of old, you know, Van Dyck. It's almost a kind of symbolic thing that one of his latest or last acquisitions was a Van Dyck painting. So this is some of Nelson's work. In the highly unlikely event you don't know Nelson, this is the kind of work that he produced. And as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, having been myself a student back in 1989, 1990, 91, I really discovered portrait painting as not only a viable kind of vocation, but also as a pursuit that could uphold the belief in the figure that I held, and the fascination with the human body. And so, first time I saw Nelson's work in person, I think, was the Yanks Paint Brits show at the Herschel and Adler galleries, and I think Nelson's painting of Princess Diana was hanging there, and right next to it was Jacob's. So it was kind of neat to see the two of them together. That was pretty cool. So it wasn't too many years later that I was fortunate enough to be an assistant, and I dug this photo up from, I think this is 2002. And some of you might be curious about who all these people are. You may not know Nora, and you may not know Vivian or Ismail. We know them, and we miss them, and it's always great to hear about them. That actually is Steve Early right there. So I was intrigued, and that's Jafong, and that's me right there, looking strangely presentable, I have to say, back before I became very unpresentable looking. And then this is from about the same era. There he was. He sort of reminds me these days of the photographs of Mancini. Nelson, he sort of has that, flamboyance of Mancini. Mancini was just an ungodly painter. He was such a virtuoso. And Nelson has a similar quality and characteristic that Mancini had. And I wanted to go a little further with this because it's really hard for Nancy and I to impart just how much resonance Nelson has with us. So if you'll humor me for a second, I just want to play about 2 minutes, just 2 minutes of audio. One time I was interviewing Nelson, and I've got some audio. If this doesn't come through well enough, then maybe I can get it fixed by the master editor, Jared Fisher. I'm going to inculcate Jared as a verb. I'm going to Jaredize this if it doesn't work. So just give me a second. I'm going to see if I can bring this together. Hold on 1 minute. Go to this slide.
And of course, my own aesthetic. I've been talking with a student of mine who's really advanced student about the American Renaissance, about painters Mancini, and we've been marveling at like Kramskoy and Sargent and Sorolla, and there seems to be a generation where people were so highly evolved aesthetically, and even in the study work, even in the work when they were students, there's such an elegance and an aptitude of visual. There's a presence that we can't put our finger on. Do you have any thoughts about what made them so refined and what we're missing today?
Well,
take a quick shot without thinking. If you talk about, I might for the moment exclude sergeants. If you talk about the training, say, of Boldini and probably not dissimilar from the Macaioli group, Mancini and a number of others, maybe Fortuny and some of those people, all pretty much the same generation and with very similar training. They had their sense of flair was never, and that's a word that should be probed in depth, and it sounds like a superficial word, but it should be probed in depth, for lack of a better word. That the overly rigid and rather boring, myopic academic style that's being taught by certain people and has been, is, I find, paralytic. And people who learn to draw that way with their eyeballs scraping on the end of the sharp pencil, it's not, it's so the antithesis of quote flair, you know, that, I mean, the way Rippin drew early on, the way some of the greatest draftsmen worked, is I think a greater value than, by far than the style that I don't like so much. Not that I don't like it. Some of those things can be very attractive, very pretty, very admirable in certain ways. But I think it's, like I say, I think it's a paralyzing methodology that really screws the painter up. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Did you get that? Kind of, sort of? Okay. Well, if you didn't get the wording, what Nelson talks about in the, can you hear me again or not?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming through? Good. All right. He talks about the notion of drawing the wrong way as absolutely paralytic. And there was a kind of, as I said earlier, a resonance to Nelson's voice that you never forget. And it's kind of a shame that we don't have that voice kind of floating through the air these days anymore, because Nelson could stop a conversation. He was one of those people that would walk in the room, you'd be kind of flailing around for the right words, for the right description, for exactly what you meant to say, and he would just say it. And end of conversation, you'd think about it for the next 6 weeks. You'd come back, you'd have another conversation. He was that deep, and he was that kind of eternal. So it's just it's an honor to have known him. It's really an extraordinary thing to be a dean of the school that he and Leona Shanks founded. They co-founded, and that school is called Studio Incaminati, and it is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I have a few images of Studio Incaminati, and I really wanted to carry over that sentiment that I have of being affected by Nelson as a teacher, as a representative of the highest ideals that one could aspire to, and talk a little bit about some of these amazing things that were the sort of reflections of his technique. And so one of the most preeminent elements of Incaminati's technique for the next 5 or 6 or so slides is the focus on gesture, which is on the right side. And this kind of wonderful stickly essence of gesture, kind of distillation that everybody goes into through the short poses with charcoal, with the focus on painterly qualities in drawing. So when you really kind of unpack what Nelson represented in the way that he saw the technique, he had such an extraordinary way of deconstructing the technique into aspects and disciplines that reflected the bravura that he demonstrated, but also were not wholly, they were not dissimilar. They were interrelated, even though they could stand as their own separate disciplines. So as it stands, we did wind up bringing composition back into the fold. This is one of our amazing students, Iris Liu from California, from LA. And this is Allison Blake's wonderful no-tan study on the left. This is Rob Goodman's really impressive charcoal study out of Incaminati. Rob is one of our great instructors in level 1 at Incaminati. This is actually, I believe, an anonymous drawing on the right. We're using it for our reaccreditation. Some of you may already know that there is a strong relationship in a lineage sort of way with Nelson Shanks and Henry Hinchey. So I've got these two really fun images here, one of which is by Hinchey. And of course, I love Hinchey's work and was influenced by his adventures and his knowledge and his philosophies as a student and then later as a teacher. And then this image up on the top right is a student who's painting in Charles Hawthorne's school, which was founded in 1899. This is about 1920, and I got this from the Archives of American Art. So where that manifests into incommenality is in the form of very strong, very pointed, very articulate color and light study. So you see in this image an artificially lit study by a great student out of Alabama named Jason Espy. And then his natural light color study of the same kind of mindset, I should say. So this notion on a full color palette, this focus on the palette, almost like a musical instrument. And I forgot to say this, but listening to that recording of Nelson with George Gershwin behind him, I have to think that maybe I should be playing Gershwin behind me as I talk to people, because that must be part of the great effect, right, Nancy? Of what made him so memorable. He always had Beethoven behind him. And when you say something consequential and you have Beethoven to back it up, it doesn't get much better than that, right?
No, it doesn't.
So Incommenality also gets the students involved in a great deal of anatomical work. So we have this amazing Steve Early overlay of anatomical structure, as well as an écorché on the right side, which means without skin. And that is made by the great Stephen Perkins, who comes up from Florida to teach. We've got a focus on the painterliness and the shape, construction, and management, the seeing of structure within the shape on the left side. I think these are by Darren Kingsley. And on the right is Lee White's painting of what we call duotone, which is, again, one of the great specialties of the school. This kind of warm, cool grisaille that has been kind of managed as a discipline, which is very open to stylistic interpretation, but is nonetheless a building block in the training of the painter. We get into more advanced studies. We have Natalie Italiano's painting of Rachel Pearson on the left, coming out of The Wizard of Oz. Rachel's another really terrific artist who teaches with us. And then we have Robin Fry on the right side, who herself won a big award at the Portrait Society some years back. This is a progression by Carrie Dunn, who is just an astonishingly good painter these days, and is teaching a lot in the finishing technique category, which is something that's been developed recently. If you've checked out the school, that's great. If you've checked it out and haven't in a while, you may want to come back and check it out again. And I've got some images to justify that in a couple of seconds. On the left, we've got some focus on the figure in color. This one's done by Jiafang Lu, who you saw a photo of earlier on. Fantastic color study in an environment. And on the right, this is by Darren Kingsley. This is a pretty amazing figure painting on the right, and really does a tremendous job at crystallizing those interrelated disciplines of finish, of grisaille, of anatomy, of color. So that's a real head turner. The program also involves students in thesis work. We have Daryl Burkhardt's amazing thesis painting on the left side, which was inspired a lot, believe it or not, by dynamic symmetry, by geometry in the rectangle, which she got a lot of at the school, in which she manifested into a remarkable series of paintings. And then we have Alexander Shanks, his wonderful painting on the right. And what Alex was doing in his thesis work was kind of memorializing the place that he grew up, which became like an entity, like a personality, that being Chelwood, the place that we always used to visit to kind of share space with Nelson and Leona. And that became the gist of his thesis. So in addition to that, what we've been trying to do the last couple of years is get everybody into a conversation about what you would want to do, how you'd want to take these skills, which are so hard won, which take so much sacrifice in more ways than one, we all know it. And we've been blessed by Steve Bennett and Elaine Milotti Schmidt, Dr. Schmidt, to underwrite a program called the Bennett-Schmidt Lectures on the Higher Aim of Art. And we've had some pretty amazing people like Alex Konevsky come in and talk. I interviewed not too long ago Ron Scher in Hong Kong. We've had Bo Bartlett, who is on the board of Studio Incaminati. And he came in and spoke about his experiences in painting. And so again, the idea behind this is to get the advanced students thinking about what they want to do, what is worth making images of today. So I think that's a really important part of learning and also bridging between an advanced state of studenthood and a kind of re-emergence into professional practice. So along with that, we've also had a lot of fun in Jefferson University. I've connected with Jefferson to inaugurate a cadaver drawing program for our artists and use some great teachers. I should mention we have a number of really fantastic instructors like Jared Fisher, not to say the least, Wendy Wagner, Rachel Pearson, Evan Kitson. We see Jason Jenkins here drawing from the cadavers, Allison Blake, as I mentioned, Chris Nixon. We have Nell O'Leary, just some fantastic people that teach at the school. And this, I think, might be Steve Early's drawing down at Jefferson University. Got a couple of gifts from Elliot Goldfinger. So the school is really kind of coming along, and at the same time, it keeps its rate rather low. You know, this is a readout. We know very well what education costs students these days, and we're keeping our education, I think it's about a third of the price of most competing organizations. And I think that's really important and makes it very, very appealing. So that's kind of the essence of the school, and I think carries over from the standpoint of being influenced by Nelson and inspired really by Nelson. And what I also wanted to talk about while I have the time, while I have the con, is the project that we got involved with, several of us, which has been all-consuming, but I think you'll like it. What I want to talk about with this is the shifting of our territory and the relaunching of Incaminati from the current location, or I should say the previous location over at the Wolf Building, over to the new location in South Philly. So that location is called the Bach Building. It was built in 1936. This is an image of the Bach Building today. You can see the bar on the top of the building, and you can see an image of the same building back in, I guess, the 1940s or so, or 1937 maybe. And this is actually an industrial high school. It was a large high school that closed down and was essentially an abandoned building that was auctioned off by the city of Philadelphia. And it was acquired by an organization that decided to turn it into a makerspace. So it's all commercial, and everybody in the building is a creator. We have musical instrument restorers, we have fashion designers, we have woodworkers, we have permanent cosmetic individuals, we have all sorts of creative people in the building. And we went through it in the midst of trying to find a new location for the school, and this is what we discovered. We found a great floor. The bones were amazing, but it had a lot of issues. You can see the spray paint, the south side spray paint on the right side as our newly minted president is walking down the hallway. Holes in the ceiling, bricks missing, doors that don't shut. The bathrooms were a disaster. Everything was a real mess. So we really took it upon ourselves to try to make this space work, because we love the space. We love the location, and we thought we could do something really spectacular with the space. So kind of beginning with the floor plan, this is what the school looks like when you look at the floor plan. We're on the 7th floor, and we chose the space in many ways because of the light, folks. So when you think about, you know, an artist and how idiosyncratic we all are and how demanding we all are, we look at the north side of the building, and what we want is unobstructed north light, and that's what we wound up getting here, was unobstructed north light. All these little spaces were one thing, and we'll talk about that in a second, but we had unobstructed north light. Then we had a series of spaces that run north and south, and then this really kind of conspicuous area on the southern end, which I'll get to. So to start with the north spaces, we began by trying to figure out how we could kind of get involved in a more user-friendly space for classroom usage. And so we decided to take down some of the walls. So this is a wall that we removed in the north region. You can see the floors are kind of destroyed in through here. And we turned essentially these individual spaces, which would not have been adequate for studios, into double spaces, into spaces that could be utilized for classroom usage. And then once we had that, we started to, inaugurate the renovations and whatnot, and think about things such as the studio colors. Another really important thing for artists, which artists don't spend a lot of time talking about, but I will. And we went through a number of iterations on studio colors. I remember sending this to Jafang and Darren, and they said, it's kind of blue. And I said, yeah, you guys are right. So we went back to the drawing board, went and visited my great friends in the Florence Academy, Jordan and Amaya, and took a lot of photos of their studio colors out in Jersey City. You remember the Florence Academy, right, Nancy?
Yes.
So, unfortunately, they've closed down, but
In Jersey City?
In Jersey City, yeah, they shut down. So we went back to the drawing board, literally and figuratively, and wound up getting the entire teaching corps involved in, the decisions about reflectivity, the light colors, the ideas about light absorption. So we have, I think it's at least 3 different studio colors in each studio to try to manage the light effect coming out of the north light windows. What we also wound up doing with the spaces was to construct an area, and I say a light effect, such that we could control the aperture of the north light window. So we installed these opaque shades that literally open from the top. So to anybody else in this business, this would be backwards. We'd be out of our minds. But to us, we all know that the sweet spot is near the top of the window. And these are about 13, 14-foot ceilings. So we've got some good light in there. We also decided to put together some artificial light constructions so that we could use the spaces at night. So this is us constructing and kind of renovating and reconstructing what I call the scaffolding, so that I could use this space to bring some lighting in. And this is the lighting that we ultimately chose as the default lighting, which is a reflection of what you would call natural light, kind of, what do you call it, daylight bulbs, so to speak. So we investigated that, but we also investigated lighting for easels through specific track lighting, which is on an entirely different circuit. And we still had the north light bulb. So this is a more recent shot. This is Natalie Italiano demonstrating color study. And you can see we're utilizing the north light and the opaque shades, but we're also utilizing the artificial light in the form of what's hitting the color study. So we're using a lot of warm light, we're using cool light. Carrie, in this case, is using the window light to demonstrate. And so it's really a school built around the light for the artist. And I don't think I can exaggerate that or underscore that enough. So these are a few more shots of renovations here. Opening day, August 8th, we finally moved in. Looks great, doesn't it, Nancy?
Yeah, it looks amazing. I want to go there.
Thank you. Well, this is not so much a sales pitch as it is just sort of, you invited me to come in and talk, and this has been a major project, and it gets better, and I've got more to share with you. But once you move into a space, you kind of go back and you try to reevaluate what you were using the space for, how you dedicated it, what it would be good for, what it's not good for. It's not great to have a space if you're misusing it. Like if you decide you want to use it for exhibitions and it's not painted for that, or vice versa for painting, and you got reflectivity bouncing all over the model. So we tried to design it smart. So that takes us to the Southern Studios. We've got the Southern Studio, which is not getting north light, and this is pretty much the way that it looked. Give me a second, wait for it. So we're standing in one of the Southern Studios, and we're looking at the further south studio, the one that's really enclosed here, which we're going to call the Johnson Studios because of the great Betty Johnson, who supported the school so much over the years. And they were essentially a horticulture alcove. I'm not even sure what to call it. A darkened room, especially at night, kind of like a storage bin, right, Nancy? A little bit like that. So this we knew was going to take some doing. We were going to need to do something really dramatic in here to improve the space, to make the space not just a storage area for the school, but to make it a teaching space. So we wound up going in and first of all, renovating the adjacent southern space, because we knew that we could bring in the level 1 students and they wouldn't need natural light because they're new. You know, they're drawing for the first time. They're studying the big shapes of the figure. And as many of you know, having done drawings yourselves, you don't necessarily need the most exquisite, nuanced lighting when you start studying art. So we're going to use a lot of this area, which you can see out there. Let me see if I can find a better shot of it. Yeah. This is the area that's just outside of those southernmost studios. And this became our charcoal drawing room. We put extra filtration in it, so it really has a kind of broad, large feel. And I'll show you what it looks like in a second. Again, this is that room that I'm talking about. These are the really dark rooms that don't have any illumination at the moment. So that one is what we're going to look at right now. So keep that space in mind. There it is. So we got a nice floor color. And that became our level 1 studio on the opposite end of the school, which is a really nice thing. And so we wound up taking a few more shots, put the easels in for opening day. So we've got the shades that block out the light, because the light is east-west, folks. So that becomes a charcoal drawing room for the level 1 students to draw from the figure and gesture and from the still life and whatnot. Okay, so far, are you with me? Good? All right, let's keep going. Now we go further south and look at the Johnson studio or studios. And again, this is how they looked the first day we toured. It was not pretty. It was kind of like, wait a minute, just put your stuff in there and forget about it, right? Kind of dingy, kind of dark. We found out later on that back in 1930 something, this used to be glass, but we didn't know that until just recently. So again, we're talking now about these spaces and through here. So we started to look at it, and you know, I started wondering about the previous experiences that I had. We were outside looking at the space from the side here. This is the Eastern Terrace on Bach, which we're actually using for outdoor color painting this spring. We're going to be using outdoor light in our programming and in our curriculum. But we're looking at it going, that's got to be, you know, an artist studio. That just has to work. So I went back to my my notes and I pulled some images here for you. These are not of Bach. This image you're about to see is from New York, and this is the old Janus Collaborative School before the building, I guess, was torn down back in the day. These were our skylights of the Janus Collaborative right after we'd installed them. As a matter of fact, you might be able to recognize that's Michael, and that's Eddie Nino over there. So this is probably 2006 or so when we put them in. And they were pretty awesome. They were pretty impressive. So we were able to really utilize the space in the studios. And from the inside, they had a pretty incredible light condition. So this was the old Janus Collaborative space. And we were there for about 6 years. It was pretty awesome and just a delight to teach people there. So started thinking, you know, how do we take that and turn that into something that we can utilize in Southern Philly? How do we take that and put that in a building in this environment? I mean, it's still urban. So it's like, wait a minute, maybe we could do something with a kind of sawtooth design. So back to the drawing board we go. And I wind up in the height of COVID at the drawing table, drawing up plans for, you know, sawtooth, skylit, you know, infrastructure, and then how to utilize it, and then how to relay that to the architects and to the engineers and to my colleagues so they wouldn't think I was nuts. And it was actually a doable thing. So that really involved a lot of specifications regarding the size of the studios, because see, they're all different. These two are actually the same, but the one in the middle on the southern end here is kind of smaller. And again, that's north up there. And then, so I'm doing these drawings, you know, how can we utilize it? Can we do exhibitions? You know, can we do portrait drawing or painting? Can we do figure drawing or painting? And then how is all of that going to be incorporated so we don't close down the space too much, so we don't take the space and and limit the space because we want to be able to do events in the space, among a great many things. So we had some wonderful ideas from our president about putting in glass facades for the southernmost studios. And then I was coming up with a few different kinds of drawings about how this could work with the scaffolding, as well as with the enclosures, the hallways, the egress. And we wound up, this is a lot of stuff, right? Sorry.
Well, can I interrupt just for a moment?
Yeah, sure, sure.
So to all of you that are listening, this, my brain's already working, and certainly when I had to move and redo a studio and stuff, all of you should be writing notes and taking down information, because for your own studio, or if you're limited in your space, the way Dan is attacking the approach, how do we do this? If I'm dealing with South Light, how do I make that work? What could I make that room to make it work? People don't think of that. They think, oh, I'm just going to be what I have. So, put some questions in the chat. Like, I'm curious about the lights that he has, and, how he came up with all of this, working out a problem solving in a space. All of us as artists really need to know about this and think this way and strategize the way Dan is. So I'm amazed, Dan. Your drawings look great, by the way. I used to teach architecture.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't do all that well in industrial arts class in the 6th grade, so maybe I'm trying to make amends for it. But and I don't mean to take all the credit for this project. I'm blessed to be surrounded by really brilliant people all the way around, from the faculty to the administration to the students, frankly, to the board. So we all essentially got together and tried to do our best to create a space that would really work. And again, this is a school built on light. It's built for the artists, and it's built essentially for artists. So at this point in our story, we are thinking about lights, and I've got what this image represents here. This is a hand-drawn image of that, and these are glass, north-lit glass, like big panes. And we found out we could only get 6-foot panes of glass and line them up vertically, because that's kind of the limitation. But we had a real issue, folks, which nobody, including myself, could quite figure out. I don't know if you remember that image of the outside of Bach, but here's what it looks like. Here's the side orthographic projection. We're looking at the space here that's conceptual, because there's nothing there yet. But we're looking toward the east, and check this out. We had a vertical wall in front of the horticulture storage space. So the whole idea of how in the world do you design around that, and what is that going to do? Is that going to catch the reflection coming off the southern sun in the winter and bounce light in here? Is there going to be enough light? Or will there be some sort of an issue with that? So we kind of pondered that for a while. And then, let's see, our great friends on the board, Bo Bartlett and Betsy Eby, suggested, and this is the Bo Bartlett Center here, suggested that we look at a different kind of lighting mechanism, which essentially is a kind of acrylic composite, sort of like a plexiglass, but an insulated product that would allow light to come in without allowing light to be so direct. So we started looking into that notion, and we were looking at airports, we're looking at libraries and all kinds of stuff. And we landed on this product called Kalwall, Kalwall, manufactured up in the Northeast, up in New Hampshire or Vermont or something like that. So they came down and did a couple of demos. This is Kalwall doing a demo for us at Incominati. They had the great sense to show up on a really sunny day. Just kidding. And so we could see where the light was coming through, but was somehow dissipated. It was filtered in such a way that, and these are different options, by the way. This one is allowing more light. This is allowing less light. And they were a kind of thickened double pane module type of thing. And even the issue of the insulation became a talking point, because we were worried about condensation. So once we decided to go with this, they came back and demoed this again. And then I went back to the drawing board and tried to figure out, how in the world do we want to do this? Do we want to set it up so that we get kind of a triangle, almost like a teepee? Should we push it back for a different structural load? Should we go with the main light and then block off the southern end? Should we go with the main and then the top and then block off the southern end? Will that be a problem for weight, as we imagine it might? Would this be a better option? Would that be a better option? See what my skills in Photoshop are. They're non-existent, right, everybody? So this is Caldwell in, let's see, the Crocker Art Museum in Sacramento, California. And we wound up taking the module here, the single sawtooth, and going with that, which will allow us to have a 6-foot aperture on the north side and about an 18-foot aperture on the southern side. And we wound up pushing that over so that we could line it up with the load-bearing mechanisms within the building. So once again, this is before anything got started in the Southern Studios. These are those studios that, again, are like storage units. This, by the way, is something that we created. We made doorways to line up and provide access to the studios. We also made the studios handicap accessible. And then we went to the project to the roof about getting started with the apertures, the openings, and then the construction started. And here's what we started dealing with here. Isn't that cool? I hope somebody is impressed. So they put in the plywood, they put in the call wall. We wound up with a product even more amazing than we could have hoped, because we're finding a lot of the light is coming from the south, but it's non-direct light. It's light that's coming in and getting, again, diffused in such a way that it really is going to work for the creative interests of our students and our teachers. So another image here. This is unfinished. We were trying to develop some advertisement for it, and we had the great Dan Mallman come in and pose under the skylights. This is after we put insulation in there, and just so thrilled with all this and how it's working. And then we're not even done, folks. We're still working on it. It's not done yet, but this is, so you can go back and see there's the raw wood. There's Dan Mallman with the insulation. Now we've got the paint on it. We've painted the well of skylights. And we have one more aperture to go, and that is the center one. So we're still constructing the last skylight, but I wanted to share this image with you and the two that follow it, because it really is a great illustration of why skylights are so important. Notice the direct light coming in from the sky. We couldn't just open up the ceiling. Check this out now. We won't see this again. So there's a direct image of sunlight coming in. Here's the skylit, obviously, space. Another one here. So you can see how critical it is. And then looking at the skylets from different points of view here. This is up above, looking down on them. A couple other images of it in process. I can assure you this man has a head. I know it doesn't look like it, but I'm not that cruel. There's his head. So we got the skylit here, the direct sun there, a few more. You can see too the nature of the light, the way the light kind of looks ghostly in here. I think it's really quite beautiful and poetic. So it's nice, right, Nancy?
Yeah, they have windows like that at the Met, and when you walk in there, the way the light is diffused so evenly, it's just really beautiful.
Yeah, that's great. I love the Met reference, and I'm going to bring up another Met reference, which is when we were doing the Higher Aim of Art lectures, the Bennett Schmidt lectures on the Higher Aim of Art. Our board member, Al Holm, shared with us the fact that he's the one that did the 19th century galleries at the Met. So when you go into the Met, and that's Al Holm's work. And I said to him, don't you ever want to take credit for that? Because, I mean, that's pretty awesome. It must have been 1 billion people in your space. And he says, well, the whole point is kind of to get out of the way and to make it almost anonymous in a sense. So hats off to Al Holm. What a great guy. So anyway, this is an image there, another image here. And this is from the outside. We decided to get up above them and take a look at Southern Philly, take a few shots. That's the football stadium for the Philadelphia Eagles. Not sure what that is.
Dan, quick question.
Yes.
Barbara Greco wants to know, what do you do for ventilation? It's quite impressive.
We installed new ventilation for all the units, and we actually have a advanced filtration in the southern spaces because of the charcoal. We tried to get the advanced filtration for all the studios because we were thinking about clay dust, but we couldn't do that. It was out of our budget, so we instead decided to kind of concentrate it in the southern studios, so we can do pastel in there if we want to. But for the most part, the ventilation has been pretty great, because I think it's partially because the ceilings are so high, but also the units, we have 2 vents on either side of each room. And so it circulates quite a bit, and I'm pretty excited about it. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara.
Another image here. Another image here. You can see the 2x4s and whatnot going up. And what else do we have? Oh, the Bach bar. So if that hasn't sold you on coming down to visit us, folks, please be advised that there's a bar right above the studios. So I guess you can come down and have a few drinks and hopefully not lose your lunch on our skylight windows, please.
Well, the New Jersey members that are here, I want to organize an event with Elaine Sahar. She's sitting in here. She's the ambassador for Pennsylvania. So we're trying to get PA members and New Jersey members to do an event somewhere where we can paint. And I might just come down there with a group of people. If everybody's on board, raise your hand. That might be good, COVID permitting, and, maybe the end of the summer might sound good. I got a thumbs up. Good.
You guys got it. Yeah, come on down and see us. Seriously, just come on by. We're
Oh, people say count me in.
we are opening in an arena or in an environment where schools are closing, and so we believe we're very optimistic and we're very aspirational about the future. So we'll see what happens. So that's kind of what's been going on within Caminati, and so I could go into myself now. This is the place where I maybe least like to explore, but that's kind of, I guess, our nature, right, as artists. So a couple things about me. I am very fortunate to be involved in 3 non-competitive programs, each of which I think is at the top of its game. I am a teacher within the New York Academies MFA program, which I love, which I graduated from myself. I was very fortunate to have won the Erlbacher Award at the New York Academy, and continue to reflect on my experiences with Martha Erlbacher and how much I loved her. I'm faculty chair of CFA, which is the Certificate of Fine Arts program at New York Academy, and that is I'm contracted in a full-time commitment at New York Academy, and have been for a number of years, and that's been a great honor to work with John Volk and others. And I'm also Dean of Fine Arts of Studio Incaminati, which is the ultimate 4-year program. So I think of those 3 as the programs I would not rather be in any other program. Those are the places, if I had a choice, I'd be there in those 3 engagements. So I consider myself extremely blessed to be, part of these programs, because I feel so, I see them in such a great light. And I don't see some of the other places that I was involved in the same kind of light. I'm not trying to single out anything. If anything, I'd single out Parsons, not GCA. GCA is cool by me, and Jacob, God bless him, whatever he wants to do, it's good by me. But I found Parsons not to be a program that I could either believe in, that I could trust, and I'm really happy that I'm at Incaminati. So let's see.
Recommend people, just a little side note, sorry to interrupt, Dan.
Yeah, sure.
From years ago, when people would say, who would you study with? What school would you go to? And, Nelson had just opened Incaminati, and you and Michael were at Janus School. Those are the only 2 places I said, but if you want a master's, Dan Thompson's teaching at the New York Academy. That's it. I would never recommend anybody else. If it was me and I had the money, even at my age, I would do the whole 4 years at Studio Incaminati, even though I'm advanced. Because I think no matter how old you are, no matter how much you know, there's always something you could learn. So
thank you, Nancy. You're what, 29? Is that how old you are?
I just turned 18.
I appreciate that. I really think that, I mean, I remember having a conversation with a couple people about this, actually at PSA years ago, and I stand by what I'm saying. I would not want to be involved in a program that I didn't believe in. I just don't think I'd make a difference. So it's great to hear you say that, and I'm super psyched to be a part of each one of them. So let's talk about my interests. My interest is kind of predictable, given that we're on a portrait centric call, a Zoom call. I'm really interested in the head. I'm interested in the notion of the kind of essence that comes through in the model as one engages with the model from life, from direct observation. The feeling, if you want to call it that, the kind of spark, the unteachable phenomenon that emerges through the figure. Those are things that I don't think anybody can control overtly. You can certainly get better and better and better, but there's somehow a feeling that comes through with a high degree of technical training, where even though you rely upon that and you believe wholeheartedly in the depth of technical training, you kind of aspire to get out of your own way and let the feeling come through. So on the left, we've got a figure. This was a Brazilian dancer. Really had a good time drawing him on the left side. And on the right, that's Justin in red chalk. So I'm a big red chalk guy as well, because I just love the way that red chalk is a kind of alternate drawing technique. I was trying to describe this the other day with a friend in the elevator at the Academy, that you wouldn't play jazz and rock and roll the same way. You play them with a kind of different cadence, with a different feeling, and you wouldn't want to draw red chalk like it's a pencil. Red chalk is a different animal, completely different thing. The range is different, the editing is different, the calligraphy is different. Even the material characteristics are quite different and should be explored to their utmost. So often this is a tone paper kind of phenomenon. And, sometimes it's a really fast, almost alarmingly fast procedure to be involved in. And then this is Danny, my friend from the Art Students League, who I miss. This is obviously a graphite drawing. This is a longer study. And there's something about this introspection perspective that you can get when people sit for you, the way that they kind of sink within themselves and kind of contemplate.
Dan, question.
Yes, sure.
Tracy would like to know, what paper do you use and how do you prepare it? People are starting to jump in with the questions here. So how do you prepare it and what do you use? I remember a long time ago, Lana paper you used to use. I don't know what you're using now, but.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. Questions are most welcome. It's funny you should mention Lana paper, because that was our go-to, wasn't it? Back when I started teaching, more actively in 1998, and it was always charcoal. It was always Lana Royale and charcoal. And
yeah, Jacob's place, Water Street. Remember Saturday, the figure drawing?
Yeah.
Everybody, Dan would teach figure drawing on Saturday at Water Street before they closed, and then it became Studio Incominati, and it was 7 hours of figure drawing on a Saturday for $25. Now, how could you beat that? And it was the most amazing thing, but we used the Lana paper. It was always the Nitram charcoal, right, Dan?
Yeah, that was a really great thing. And again, it's why, I'm a kind of, live and let live sort of person. Jacob really was wonderful and instrumental. And I had given Sean Fields a critique at Water Street one morning because he asked me for one. And Sean was, one of the most true artistic type people I've ever met. He just was such a free thinker and a free, stream of consciousness kind of guy. And I gave him a crit, and Jacob came in and he said, I'm announcing that Dan's teaching a class starting next month. And it was great. It was like, wow, okay. So I started teaching at Water Street. And of course I was terrible at it. I was just, I think, the worst teacher.
Oh, never.
And I'm not kidding. I think the reason was probably too much. I overcooked every lesson. I tried to throw in lots and lots of quotes and lots of this and that. And it just all went in the wrong direction. And I tried the best I could to recover myself and reaffirm my own belief system. So jumping into it taught me a ton. And that was the best thing about it. So what I wound up doing later on was, as industries changed their manufacturing and whatnot, Lana was taken out of circulation. No more Lana. And then Hussein was actually discontinued as well.
Yep.
And didn't come back on the market until a fellow bought that years later and then reconstituted Hussein. So we all just kind of magically went from charcoal gradually over to pencil. So these days it's all Strathmore, the brown cover Strathmore, which is the ubiquitous Strathmore.
400
drawing.
Still? Yeah.
Yeah, 18 by 24 drawing. And then I'm kind of a Japanese pencil nut. I use Tombow a lot. I use Mitsubishi a lot. I like Pentel a lot. I like Colleen. Those are all like pretty incredible pencils. I don't think you can go wrong with a Japanese pencil. They really are the best, but they've been the best for a long time these days. If you go back further in time, the Germans are the best. The German pencils and the old Austrian pencils are really ridiculous. I mean, it's like opening up a 1925 bottle of wine or something when you draw with one of those 1936 Staedtler pencils. It's pretty incredible, but nothing like that exists today. I mean, you can tell, it's hard to convey to somebody who doesn't know how different a feel you get with quality material who's working with junk. And this is part of the kind of bane of our industry. We need better materials. We need people who care as much as we care about, our model, our process, our transformation, our aspiration.
You got me into the Tombow, and I always use them. But when I went to see your demo at the Florence Academy up in Jersey City, you recommended the Mitsubishi. So for all of you out there, a couple of people are my students on here, and I always recommend Tombow. The Mitsubishi is like a Ferrari. I love the feeling of that pencil. It kind of glides over the paper, and the H pencil almost performs like a B pencil. Am I right? It's a little softer than the Tombow.
Yeah. So I mean, the great repository of artist materials these days is a little place some of you might have heard of called eBay. And so if you're looking into artist materials and you're looking at German pencils, you think of like the Castell company and the Staedtler company, and those are pretty exquisite materials in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Right around the end of the Second World War, the Americans take over the German factory and they rename the pencil the Winner, the A.W. Faber-Castell Winner, which is kind of ridiculous. It's almost like rubbing their nose in it, but be that as it may, the pencil goes to the junk phase. I mean, it's just absolute garbage. And, so the 40s, 50s, 60s, those are not good days for German pencil manufacturing. That's when the Japanese really come into their own. So Mitsubishi really becomes Mitsubishi around 1966, 67. They introduced the high uni, I think around 67 or 68. And Tombow comes out with their Mono 100 about the same time. And that's where the Lamborghinis are. Those things are ridiculous. It's like, drawing is just pure enjoyment with that kind of stuff.
Anna Stebe, please spell this in the chat. Who?
Oh, Staedtler. Oh, Staedtler pencils are the famous blue ones. J.S. Staedtler pencils. They're yeah.
Staedtler?
What's that?
This blue, the Staedtler, right?
The famous Staedtler pencil.
Staedtler, yeah,
Staedtler, yeah. I had a German student, and I used to say Staedtler, and then he corrected me, and I've never been the same since. I've always tried, Staedtler like that, try to not get it wrong. But yeah,
which Mitsubishi do you recommend, Dan?
Say what?
Which Mitsubishi do you recommend?
The High Uni, which is their best pencil. But also Uni is great as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wouldn't bother with the American pencils. No offense to Kimberly, but they're trash. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple of drawings here. This is Desi on the right. This is a fun drawing to do. I don't know how much drawings you want to see, but I've got a whole bunch of them. I've got two drawings of oh God, what's his name? Why am I blanking?
You're getting older, that's
yeah, I am. There's so much in my head that that I want to
I love
say.
your technique on these, seeing, I don't know if any of you have seen Dan's demos in person, but it- they're quite different from back in the day when I was his student, how he would draw in which he turns like all of these little planes. He kind of puts the pencil over, let's say, the top plane of the nose, and now it's coming under, and then he's cross hatching the other way. It's just amazing. It's a mirage of like these directional plane strokes, and they're just quite beautiful. So
Bless you for saying that. I appreciate that very much.
am I
I,
right? That's what you're doing though, right?
I'm attempting to, yeah. I'm a big proponent of the art of editing form. These are Pedro, and Pedro, both of them are Pedro. The first one is on the left, obviously, and the second one is on the right. And Pedro he's just, great models know how to emanate. I'm not even sure what to say. There's something magical about them. They're like the most incredible mimes or something. They can communicate with their bodies and with their energy. And Pedro, this is also Pedro on the left here, um, where he was posing out at Brandon's studio, at Studio One, at not 126, but at Chelsea Classical Studios.
Yeah,
Um,
Brandon.
yeah, Brandon's a great guy as well. Has been to Incominati and lectured. And this is Tanya, who's posed at Incominati, excuse me, the Art Students League. Too many schools, Nancy, right?
No, there's a few of them, and you all come from the same. I think you and Michael used to teach at Brandon Soloff Studio. What was that, 26 Studio?
Yeah, they asked me to do it. It was weird because it was called Studio 126 because it was at 126 West 23rd Street in Manhattan.
That's right.
And the New York Academy at the time, I had been teaching there already, but somebody set the kiln on fire. And what the fire didn't destroy, the fire department did.
Oh,
So the school had to move a lot of its operations up to Mercer Street in Soho, and they shut down the continuing education program. And so right about that same time, Brandon was kind enough to invite me to teach a class at 126. So I taught there for about 2 years and had some great students there.
Bob is here.
Oh, Bob
Bob,
was awesome. Yeah, Bob
Bob
Silver was there a
is
lot, and
here.
Bob and I became great friends there. And we had Ronnie. Remember Ronnie? Ronnie passed away a few years ago, unfortunately.
Did he
Uh,
really?
yeah, great.
Oh, somebody
Um,
would like to know, Barbara Greco again. Thank you so much for your questions, Barbara. She said, will you be teaching a drawing class with charcoal, graphite, or red chalk? Are you
uh,
teaching that in Combinati or the New York Academy?
this coming weekend, I'll do a class at New York Academy focused on facial expression. I'll do the 6 major facial expressions as put forth by the great Paul Ekman out of UC Davis, I think. And we're going to try to focus as much as we can on blended expressions. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you want to, do that, then I think the link is on my website. Feel free, please come
Yeah.
in.
Uh, so it's charcoal, graphite, and red chalk, correct? Whatever.
They could use whatever one they want. When I do these lessons, I essentially pick my topic and focus, like laser focus all my brain power on the topic. So if they do it in red, or if they do it in graphite, if they do it in charcoal, if they do it in grisaille, anyone is fine. So
Does that answer your question, Barbara? She'll say yes. Okay, thank
no
you.
problem. I'll keep going. There's a lot of other images to show you. I try to do them 2 at a time because it's more bang for your buck, right? This
Yeah,
is the great Nelson who was assisting me last year. Just did this one last year on the left side. He's a
gorgeous.
super interesting guy and an aspiring emerging artist. And this is the wonderful Hef that posed at Incominati. And let's see, what else do we have? Gabriella, who was my assistant at New York Academy some years back on the left side here. Gabriella is wonderful and amazing and bailed me out big time last week when she helped me translate and not mispronounce Spanish to the best of my ability. So Gabriella is a kind of godsend. This is a self-portrait drawing that came out of the recent workshop from earlier this year. I'm really interested in the body obviously, but I've got some anatomical drawings coming up for you as well, Nancy, if you want to see them.
Absolutely. Does everybody want to see Dan's anatomical drawings? They're amazing.
Thank you. So this is one of James that was purchased by Heather in New York, and really honored to have Heather bring that to her collection, which was super fun. And this was the one on the left at Salmagundi last year, back when everybody was occupying the same space. So that was the competition at Salmagundi. And I did the one on the right based upon an invitation from Colleen Berry to come out to GCA and demo it there. And that was Remy, I think. She posed. And I just want to say that I really believe in the notion of gesture, the interest that I have in gesture. Gesture is that kind of fluttering effervescence that the face can have in facial expression. So I've done a lot of gesture drawings and a lot of coaching on exactly how to go after the weight and the equilibrium in the body. So many of these things are starts. Try to put a few starts in here for you, because there's something about starting and getting really good at starting, which leads to a much stronger finish. And I think that came through most resolutely with Nelson, because Nelson was always about a vital start. And you'd see he would begin something and he didn't have to finish it. It just looked incredible. It was
Absolutely.
like a piece out of a time warp,
You better not do detail. I remember in his class, we would tone the charcoal paper. I don't know if you do that. And then you had your chamois cloth, you went in with a piece of vine charcoal, you drew it in and you wiped out the light. Lord help you if you put any transitions or halftones or details in the drawing. It was all about the gesture and keeping it really simple.
Yeah, some years back, John DeMartin and I were comparing notes about our favorite Nelson lines, because Nelson came from an age when your objective was like shock and awe teaching.
Yeah.
You'd last these days, if you practiced that at school, you'd last about 5 minutes before you wound up in a lawyer's office. But he was so great at it, and I think he came from that, and it was part of, like, he didn't suffer fools easily. He didn't waste time. And so I think John DeMartin's favorite line was Nelson walked up behind somebody and she was doing like an eyelash or something. And he said, "You're going to drive me to drink." And it was.
I got one for you. I would get really close to my drawing and Nelson would pass in back of me and say, "Stand back." So I'd stand back a little bit. He'd come back a little while later. He goes, "You're not back far enough. Stand back." I said, "Nelson, if I back up anymore, I'm going to be in the lockers." So, and that was him. He would, ask him a question. He won't answer it unless it's a good question. He'd say, "Nope, that's a stupid question. I'm not answering that."
Yeah, again, he was incredible about distilling the notion, the sentiment down to a workable principle. I remember one time he said, "I don't think that one can proceed on a basis of ignorance." And it was like, there it is. That's why I hate Parsons. that's
I
it.
love him though. He could say that all day long, and the guy was brilliant, and he was certainly, a great master. So
Yeah, this is James. This drawing is actually on paper made from stone, and it was a lot of fun to do. So you have to kind of change your medium. So my materials here are a little bit more waxy. I'm using kind of black colored pencils with graphite in this one. And on the left side here, I've got a charcoal drawing on more of a laid paper, so the paper has more texture on it. And then the one on the right of Allison is a continuation on Strathmore, on the typical Strathmore paper, but again, with the colored pencil as well as with the graphite. So
Robert Dale Williams wants to say something to you. He said, "Please relay to Dan what he told me as a student at the New York Academy in 2003. Your work needs more everything. Still one of the best crits I ever got."
well, that's pretty awesome. And I remember you, sir, and thank you for being here. And I feel blessed that you're here. And it's just amazing how we all go through life and we keep being inspired by each other's careers and just informed, because we're all in the same conversation. It's weird. It's like I was looking at the flyer on the on the wall at the Academy the day about Ali Banisadr, who was in my class in 2006. And the guy's like a world famous artist now. It's pretty great to see it. There are books on him and monographs. And
Who's this, Dan?
Ali Banisadr, he went to the Academy, and I think he won the fellowship to stay on another year. And then he wound up being in an auction, and his painting went for $500,000, and then
Wow.
started the kind of avalanche of success. And it's great to see that, and pretty awesome. This, I don't have a good photo of the great Charles, Ribcage Charles on the right side, but this one on the left is an old drawing from Janus from that era, a teaching drawing. So those are fun to include in talks like this because they don't usually see the light of day. And
I remember the one on the right. I absolutely loved that drawing. Just the feeling of the rib cage, the lifting up of the rib cage, being a dancer and taking ballet, gymnastics, you do that. I can so feel the breath coming in of that stance. I just adore that drawing. Is it for sale?
oh, thank you. I've got that drawing. It might have been, except that we lost him. And I have to say that Frank Porcu gave him that name, Ribcage Charles, and he always loved that. And there was something about him, like, it's sort of like Christoph, where you just, like, once he's gone, there's a void, and there's a real void. And it's not just because he had this incredible body, and he was literally like 70 years old when he posed for that drawing, but he brought a kind of higher ideal to the vocation. It wasn't just a job, and he wasn't there to waste any time. He was a musician. Many of these models were musicians. I can't quite remember her name, but she was a musician who played a lot in the New York subway system, and she was always playing, and she was really serious. And I think half of what we're doing here is, if it has any success whatsoever, is because of the models.
Absolutely.
So I've got some anatomy studies. A lot of this stuff is from the cadaver. So these are more recent drawings, and they're done as just, I don't know, they were preparation at one point, and then it became fascination. And these days they're almost cathartic because the body has so much to offer. It's literally like looking into the ocean. I mean, there is just an endless supply of aesthetic, secretive information. All you have to do is study and look at it and closely observe and rearrange and question and ask yourself if this is what you really think it is. Because in addition to having so much to offer, there's a lot of variability in the human figure, a lot more than we were all taught. So there are many on the call that have already heard this, but I'll just say it again, that in the situation with Jefferson, which I set up with Dr. Sputic at Jefferson University, she was dissecting the incombinati body, which we've been calling it, the gift, and she found a third head on the bicipital third head. So, I mean, that gives you an example of just how much we differ in addition to being so much the same. So it's really an extraordinary thing, and it keeps you, I don't know, in rapture or something about the variabilities of life. So this one is from, actually, I think this one.
Class, right? That's from
What's that?
That's from your class. I'm sorry to interrupt. That was 2019 or 18. John Variano told me he took a cadaver class with you up near Columbia, was it?
Yeah, did that up in, and this was a study, obviously, of the upper limb, but this was an opportunity to really look at the forearm and the wrist structure. This was the cover image for a different course that I think John may have dropped in on. John's an awesome guy, and we both serve on the board of the Artists Fellowship, which is another incredible organization that helps artists out. If anybody out there is a professional artist and you don't know about the Artists Fellowship, you should really check it out, because it's really a last line of defense against financial ruin for creative people. It's made for artists. It was founded in 1858 or something, 1860, 1870. And forever and ever, it's been helping artists only. And it costs you a huge amount, $40 a year. And in case you get into financial trouble, you write the Artist Fellowship and get some help.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the back view. Obviously, again, so much complexity, so much to offer. This is more
Ah,
of the figure, studying the boxes, looking at the structures of the body, trying to understand how things work, just geeking out, on what makes the figure so extraordinary. This is the skull and the head, obviously but there are planar and interrelated, almost faceted structures that one can look at and ponder as you kind of relate the forms that you see to things like, long boxes, 2x4s, or conical structures like this, or triangles, or trapezoids. It just it seems to be in abundance in the human body. That's why I think the body is the rite of passage for every great artist over many generations, because it's just endlessly abundant in all these principles. So that leads to things like demonstrations. This is one of Pedro that I did at Janus Collaborative School a number of years back. Never quite finished it, but that's okay. Lockdown drawings, a couple of those for you. The pandemic has been good to some of us in terms of helping us get some time in our own headspace. Um, you know, Health and public health notwithstanding, we've all had concerns about that, but it has been a kind of extraordinary rebuilding time for a great many artists and even models that I've spoken to over the last few months. So it's been it's been nice to reconnect and to kind of juggle the teaching regimen and reformat it to a different medium in the form of a digital medium. So that's been interesting.
when does
I like
it break?
demonstrating, so I've got some demonstrations here that I've done. This was a demo that I did in San Francisco a number of years ago at actually a bit south of San Francisco at the Bay Area Classical Artists Atelier with the great Linda Delaney. And this is Luri, I think. She was wonderful. So a lot of this is just, studying the structures again and trying to demonstrate for the students ways of deconstructing the body metaphorically. This is a hand study that I did last year for the students at the
Oh,
Academy.
that's beautiful, Dan.
Oh, thank you.
I
Thank you.
love the one right, in the center coming down, the hand dropping like that. Just beautiful.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. This is the torso that we were able to get and really belongs to the school. So we're going to install this and make a few copies of this for the school coming up in those new studio spaces. But I've just been enjoying this so much and trying to utilize this for teaching, trying to teach the solar plexus and trying to help the students understand how to get a better grasp of the territories of the body and how they almost blend like basket weaving. It's pretty amazing because you have to, assemble it all and still make it work as an overall structural component with the perspective that's necessary. But then you have to get into the nuances and not destroy the continuity of the whole. I've done some progressions for students. This is one that was done online.
Yeah, I saw that. I was drawing along with you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. And then developed through these. This was a lesson on trapezoidal structures in the human body and how to maneuver into not only thinking that way, but shading with that principle in mind so that one would wind up not copying the model and instead looking at, more formal concerns. This is related to it. This is the neck, which I know you also saw, right? So this is one of the areas of the body that I would say is more overlooked by artists. So trying to explore that and demonstrate that and really put forth not simply like a perfunctory, hey, learn this kind of message, but to say the neck is beautiful, the neck is fascinating, the neck is a lesson in triangles. So why not take it on? Why not explore it and see it for what it is? Incredible, medium almost for artistic expression. This is another image that I did that was related to the drawing, and I'll flip back to the drawings in a second, but it's that drawing, the one of Ace that went to the Portrait Society. But these two drawings were the ones that led up to it. The one on the left is obviously a bone structure drawing, and the one on the right is a more interpretive structural drawing of that bone structure, sort of manifesting the bony framework into something that would turn planar as the artist moves from within to without. And that led to the drawing on the left side, which is now hanging at the University of Pennsylvania. So there's that. And then James, the same model on the right side here. Okay, so a few other cadaver drawings. We've got legs dissected down to the ligaments on the left. Super fun, just super engaging to try to look at that and to contemplate the inner geometry of the knee, the femur, the tibia, the territories like the popliteal region and popliteus right in through there, and how things interthread with the lateral collateral ligament. You know, things like semimembranosus dropping down and what that entails. Or on this side, on the right side, you've got the sacrotuberous ligament, and it's almost as though the sacrotuberous really is part of the hamstring, but we never hear about that. We never talk about that kind of thing. So sacrospinous, sacrotuberous, lesser sciatic foramen, you know, a line in between the two ischial tuberosities. Lots of things that can be done with that information to ponder, reflect on, and contemplate structure and what that might do, you know, who knows, but at least it takes us away from copying the model or copying a photograph. So knee structure, similarly addressed. You know, this is inspired by Bomis, Gottfried Bomis, in his great book. The neck from the cadaver. The cadaver was obviously on the side, and so I was drawing the neck in this case and trying to understand. Really, it was about levator scapulae here. This incredible muscle. And this is a red chalk, obviously, of James. This is also of James. I shared this with Rob, you know, from Oyster Bay, and for his book. And he utilized this. So it was fun to look at the structure inside the body. And the hands from the recent workshop on the hands. So that was fun, right? Some of you that are in the audience were with me for that, and we had a good time exploring the construction of the wrist, the human wrist, and what all of that entails, because it's kind of an endless game and one that we need to get better at. So let's not treat it like pebbles. Let's look at it and try to understand what it's doing, especially as we, you know, as we go further. So
I see people do that, you know, when I look at hands, you know, I see like all these, like where your radius is, you know, this bone, where it connects into the carpal. I see people put it here, here, and it looks like little pebbles. You're right.
well, somebody said that to me at the league. They said, should we bother with the wrist bones? Aren't they just pebbles? And, you know, my head exploded, and then I collected my thoughts and lowered my blood pressure, and then we proceeded onward. But it's, you know, it's part of what, you know, we contend with. The great thing is, you know, when you go into cadaver rooms, Nancy, and you pick up a book, almost without exception, what does the book have in it? What's 90% of the book? It's drawings. It's drawings.
Drawings of bones.
It's Netter. You know,
Frank
it's,
Netter,
you know,
I have
Grant's
that.
Atlas, Netter's Atlas, 90% drawings. So what is the great vehicle for doctors? It's artists. So we serve a purpose that is really huge. We just have to realize it and, you know, kind of pick our sub-vocation. So anyway, some paintings to end the festivities with. I've got the painting that I did with my wife when we were kind of, see, my wife and I met online, but we met online in 2003, folks. So it's been a long time. I mean, long time for her, but not for me. And we met in person in Istanbul, Turkey. It was the first time we actually met in person in 2004. So we've been communicating for the better part of a year, actually longer than a year. And so we met in front of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. So she's Iranian, and obviously I'm from the South. So we had to go back to our respective countries and then contemplate the idea of getting together. So we met again in Ankara, Turkey for the interview back in the day. She passed the interview. She came over right after that and got married, and it's been awesome. So these are paintings that are related to that experience. This is not my wife. This is a model named Jessica from Texas, who was an actress, and I think really active in the gym as well, like a personal trainer. And then this is a Kajar 19th century tapestry, really a lot of fun. This painting lives in Germany, and the person that bought it is one of the leading hops manufacturers for beer companies in the world. And he's a great guy. I visited the painting in 2016, so it's fun that it's over there. My wife and I went to Iran, and these were paintings that were done on site in the country of Iran. I got special permission from the Ministry of Fine Arts to paint in Persepolis, which is the place that Alexander the Not So Great burned to the ground in 300 BC. So this is Persepolis. That's me painting in Persepolis, and then this is the Hafezieh, the great monument to the poet Hafez in Iran. This is a pretty awesome little picture of my wife on the right side. This was taken in the city of Esfahan, not far from the Naqsh Jahan Square in the Isfahan Bazaar. The Naqsh Jahan means half the world. And I think it's the second largest square after Tiananmen Square in the world. So, and that guy next to me is not G. Gordon Liddy. That's a Kurdish dude that I met in a place called Takti Soleiman, which is one of the most important, what's the right word, architectural sites in Zoroastrianism, which is a kind of pre-Islamic era type of practice. Good words, good thoughts, good deeds. Iran really is a Zoroastrian country, as I see it.
Mosaic in Sada.
Yeah, if they can,
beautiful.
They could just get rid of that criminal regime, be all good, because they're pretty awesome people. So we have other paintings. This is a painting that I made that was related to those images, and I did a grisaille version and taught with it for a little while, and then I painted it in color, and I always felt like I should not have touched the grisaille. I always thought it was a better painting when it was a grisaille, so I put them both in there, and you can decide.
I like the color.
Oh, thank you. And this is a painting that I did of Gabrielle. She's the belly dancer, and what I was trying to go for was this feeling of her moving forward and moving back at the same time, because she posed for this from life, and then loaned me the costume, and it was just a lot of fun to do that painting. She put on all that heavy eye makeup, and it was so cool. She actually wanted to listen to industrial metal while she was doing the dance, so it was not Turkish music as you might imagine. This is a fountain that I painted down the street from my place in the Sailor's Snug Harbor. It's a place to go occasionally when when you're trying to get your painting energies out. And it's a bronze fountain. I think it's a 19th century bronze fountain. I don't remember the name of the German sculptor, but it's a Neptune. And since New York City has run out of cash, there's no more water in it, so it's not quite as exciting to paint these days, but that's another story. I do a lot of paintings with light and candlelight, and I do these still lifes that I just sort of enjoy. I do them, I don't know, kind of for me. A lot of them have sold, but they're just these wonderful little things to slip away from the world doing and kind of regain your sanity. And so that's one of them here. This is a West Coast painting I did with some friends out around Big Sur. What else do I have? I've got a commission I did for James Conley a number of years ago. This was a model that posed for me, and that was super fun. And let's see. I started getting more brushy with the paint application some years back, and that's when I was painting Danny on the right and James on the left. And it really happened after Janus Collaborative closed down, because I realized that I had been painting sort of as a teacher for a long time. I've been kind of trying to uphold the principles that I espoused in class while I was painting. And when I let that all go and said, this is just something I do, this is for me, I'm going to try to do my best as a teacher, but when I'm on my own time, I'm doing my own thing. I don't owe anybody anything except myself. And I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And if I really enjoy it, then it'll come through. And if it doesn't make it into Gagosian, who cares? As long as I like doing it and it makes me happy. And so that's what I've been doing. I've explored some heavier applications of paint. You can see the piece on the left. I like to put these objects on glass and light things from different directions. I like to put transparent things in front of and behind objects. On the right side, there's that. This actually, this is a fun painting to do. I had a blast with this recycle bag. That's what that is behind the
Wow.
behind the brass. It's a brass eagle. Just,
That's
I mean,
cool.
who would figure, right? But you throw light on it from 6 different directions, light a candle, put a recycling bag, and you just have the time of your life for an entire month. So stuff like that can't be
Part
overstated.
of a fantasy movie, something out of Lord of the Rings or something.
And I
But
have no idea. I just, I think it's kind of an insult to the collector if I paint something that I think will sell. I kind of have to paint something that I feel connects me with that which I'm engaged with. And I'm not sure I'm engaged with the right things necessarily, but if they're the things that reflect the authenticity of where my mind is wavering and going toward, then I'm fine with that.
that's such a great, that is a great statement for anybody that is struggling to find their voice, or if you're with a gallery, they want you to paint a certain way. People that do portrait commissions to just paint what resonates with yourself, that it's authentic. And people can tell the difference when you're painting something you don't really love because you have to do it. And when you search inside your soul and you paint what you love, it's like writing music. It's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I remember when I was at Water Street years ago as a student, and somebody was talking about, it was an anecdotal story that they told, Nancy, and they said, this was them telling it to me. They said, this one time I did a tomato painting and it just sold instantly. So, I went on my way and did another one and it sold. And I realized that every time I do a tomato painting, it sells. So, I do the work I want to do, and in between the work that I really want to do, I do a tomato painting. And so it became this catchphrase for, yeah, I'm doing a painting to sell, so I can get back to the work that really feeds my soul, to sound cliche, intentionally. And I was just never really good at that because it seemed like such a waste of time to do a tomato painting because it just didn't serve any purpose. So anyway, let's keep going. A couple other things here. There's some figures in front of a drapery that are laid out, and got a self-portrait. I always like to put these weird things behind my head and around my hand, and I don't even know where this is literally like a little toilet figurine thing that I got at a thrift store that I thought was so awesome. I had to put it in there, and it's absurd. So the facial expression is meant to be kind of ironic because there's so much absurdity in that. And then the figures, this is a Moreau lamp with an intentionally off-kilter lampshade to play with the diagonals. And I continue to do paintings that are related to this kind of idea because I'm exploring the light that I have in the space here on the top floor. And then I wanted to end it with this image of my wife. Actually, I do have that other image at the end of this, which is related to the class, but this is the painting I did of her when she first came over to the US. And it was kind of it was an inspiration from a painting by Havsep Pushman, the great Armenian painter who influenced a number of different people. And it was a painting that Pushman did of an Iranian bride. And, my wife was, we were newly married. So I did the painting, and it just a lot of fun to do. So we still have it, and it's cool. It's all good. So last thing, just as I was saying in the beginning, if you want to come by and join us for facial expression, please feel free. That's the cover image for facial expression. That's pastel. The New York Academy is hosting that event. And if not, that's cool too. I appreciate you listening, and I welcome any questions you may have.
This is an online class at the New York Academy, because
Yes.
people asked about it. What time does it start, Dan? They could find the information at the New York Academy, but ballpark, what time does that start?
Yeah, it's going to start about 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay, perfect.
And it's going to go, I think, until about 6 p.m. In the afternoon. So.
Well, before anybody jumps in on a question, of course, I have to ask my question first.
Yeah, sure. What's that?
So when you start your painting, do you start on a white background, a toned background? Do you do a grisaille and then lay the color in, or you just go direct?
So I usually start with a tone background, and I play around with the tones because I think the tonal background should serve a temperature purpose in addition to serving a purpose of distinguishing light from dark. And I've become fascinated with the notion of notan, which is the balance of dark and light and the dissemination of unique asymmetrical shapes of dark and light. If you don't know what I mean, check out Arthur Wesley Dow, please. I think notan is a wonderful principle, and I usually do something like that. It's a bit related to that skeleton painting, actually. So let me see if I can refine that. So this would be something that is a bit further developed as a grisaille and maybe too tight, maybe tighter than I work these days. But you have to gauge that, everybody, as you know, because if you get it to a point, it being the painting, that it feels wrong to develop it, you've overpressed the phase. It's like you don't want to get too good with one developmental stage of a painting. You want to invite the next chapter. And that in and of itself is an art. It's the art of editing.
What's your thought on, and thank you for that last question, and then please throw some questions in the chat, you guys. What is your thought on very hyperreal, you don't see any brushstroke images to make it look exactly like a photograph? Just out of curiosity.
It doesn't appeal to me because it takes away the mystery and the participation of the viewer. So when one is like I think, my favorite examples of that kind of painting are Harnett with Trompe l'oeil. I think some of his work was just extraordinary. And yet, that isn't the first place I go to when I walk in the museum. I'll go to the place where I feel that awe of vision of the artist. I almost feel like it's a kind of gross misuse of the artist's eye to lower oneself to a machine, because you ultimately see more with your heart as a human being than a mechanism would ever see. So why go there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you're right. There's like a movement right now that they're saying that the true masters take a year or two for a painting, and they're supposed to look so realistic that you don't see your brushstroke. And I say, wasn't that like in the 90s? Like another movement trying to make like, this is the new master work when it's already been done. But moving forward from that, Jonathan asks, Dan, how do you intuit when a painting or drawing is complete so it's not overworked but retains the gesture? That's a great question.
That's a perennial question, and one that artists struggle with time and time again. And there really is no good answer to it. But I do like what Ron Scher said recently about becoming. He talked about Antigone's take on that, and that there was a sort of notion of a third eye, an eye outside of the sitter and outside of the artist. And if you could place yourself in the position of that third eye, you'd have a sense of objectivity. So I feel more these days that the artist is searching for the ability to truly objectify, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense, but to be able to step out of oneself and look at the painting as though you don't have a ton of emotion and energy invested in it. Because just as I said a minute ago, we see with an eye that feels. Sometimes we get so hyped up that we tie our sense of literally self-worth to the painting. And we've got to remain poised in some way. And I would think positioned in such a manner that you can anticipate that there's going to be another painting, that there's going to be another chance to redeem yourself if you didn't reach all of your goals, because whoever does, right? So we have a way of seeing the things that torture us and ultimately kind of spoil the day, and yet we come back to it because we love doing it. And I think that's more challenging to master than whether a painting is finished. If you can maintain that poise and somehow take it out of context, then I think you'll know much more clearly about, the way it looks and, what your intention is. Some paintings are not meant to be pushed that far, and some are meant to be pushed really far. It sort of also depends on the project itself.
That's a great answer. I would say that I would have to agree with that. It definitely depends. It depends on what you want the outcome in the end and what the concept is, Um, just my take on what you just said.
Maybe it would be opportune for painters to learn multiple ways of finishing, because if one learns a singular way of finishing, then there's always a kind of expectation on reaching that phase. And if you don't, you feel like a failure.
That is,
But
that is really, that's a profound statement. I like that. Um, Angela, what is your favorite white to use in flesh tone?
well, obviously, lead white is the white of choice, and it's it's a great question. It really is. It's Angela. It's a great question. So I really want to say Rublev because I love George and Tatiana so much. I should say Tanya, and I think they're amazing. And I have to say, when I go to the guy's house, and he's got a shed out behind his house, and he's literally, I mean, it's literally a shit house, and outside of it, I mean, that's dedication as far as I'm concerned. And so he's got all the mechanisms of making the splintered lead lead carbonate particles become flake worthy. Uh, he knows what he's doing, and I think his lead white and Michael Harding's lead white are two of the strongest. But I have to say, when they resemble the classic Kremnitz white by Old Holland, that's kind of the mark of excellence. The Kremnitz white from Old
Yeah.
Holland was the best, and then I guess all of the restrictions in Europe became enacted, and it suddenly went from, I don't know, $30 a tube to 300 or whatever. So we all got we were crestfallen when Kremnitz white was taken to such an expensive place, because it's hard to paint with something like cobalt violet and just let everything fly. It's so expensive, and some of our materials are so pricey that they're tricky to work with. Maybe that's the appeal of a controlled palette. I would say, if I had to do one, I might stick with the Holbein, um, what's it called, silver white, because it's still cheap, it's still really good. It's a wonderful. It's like a chameleon of white. It's not too idiosyncratic. It's not long and stringy the way that some whites can be. It's not too grainy, and it's not really expensive. And as much as I love George and Tanya, and as much as I love Michael Harding's, those are still kind of pricey, and they somehow encourage and inhibit the artist when they know that product is so pricey.
Can I step in on that? Maybe you don't know this. I use lead white. I don't use titanium at all. So I've been using Michael Harding since 2000, 2001, since he first came in the country. And I agree. I always use his Kremnitz white. I use George's lead white. What I switched over to, there's one guy that, do you remember Robert Doak?
Yeah, I
You were,
do.
okay. So this guy, Eric, studied with Robert Doak, and he has a company, and this is for everybody. It's called Blue Ridge Oil, and he has Flemish white, flake white, and Kremnitz white. And it's the real McCoy, and a big tube is like $45.
That's
That's
awesome. I'll
cheap.
try it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Williamsburg, flake white I use by Williamsburg. I don't know if you've ever, Rick Poloco told me about it years ago. That's also pretty cheap, $50. The tube is the big tube.
Mm.
So I switched over to those two, so that I don't go the titanium route, because I won't.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so those are two bits of information maybe that you could afford, and all of you that use lead white, that would be my go-to.
Outstanding.
All right. What are your thoughts about Manu? Thanks, Dan, for sharing your work and the inspiring talk, and Nancy for thank you. Thanks, Manu. Thanks for coming. Okay, Robert Dale.
Thank you for being here. Great to.
Yeah. Robert Dale, what are your thoughts about narrative figurative art in today's society? Martha Mayer Erlbacher, my eyes are going, said if you depict a scene too literally, it is illustration. What are your thoughts about storytelling and painting, and your thoughts about narrative work today in society? That's a great question.
Yeah, what a great question. I mean, how many hours do you have? It's
10 minutes.
Yeah. First of all, Martha was extraordinary. She inspired so many of us, and profoundly. And I can still hear her voice in my head. And I remember she used to say, and I'm sure Robert would remember this too, art is big. And she used to say, art is about two things, sex and death. I guess the short answer is, as long as the figure paintings are about sex and death, we're okay. But the longer answer is, I think you have to kind of really do it for the right reasons. And if the reasons are that you feel it and that you want to explore narratives of great, resonance and probably ambiguity, so that again the participant can be part of your story, then it's going to make a big difference. It's funny, we had a lecture at Incominatis not too long ago, and the lecturer was arguing that the thing that drove people crazy about neoclassicism was the adherence to the snapshot aesthetic. And it was like at the end of the lecture, came back and said, that's not what drove them crazy. They were driven nuts by affectation. They were driven crazy by inauthentic painting. And then that's essentially what tore down the whole academy. So if you're going to paint a narrative piece with multiple figures, and you really feel it deeply, and you can find a connection to the here and now that brings it across as genuine and authentic, I believe it will resonate. And if it resonates with you, that's all that really counts, because a lot of painting is about salvation, reemergence through personal struggle, reaffirmation that you're in the right place creatively, and connecting with the world in a way that makes you feel right with the world. So if your painting adheres to those and delivers that feeling, then it served its purpose.
Yeah, it's Alexandra Ting, thank you. She's a really good friend of mine, and we go back and forth all the time.
Alexandra Ting?
Alexandra Ting, yeah.
She's great. I just saw her portrait at Jefferson. Great, awesome portrait. And then I know she painted Dr. Sputic, and Dr. Sputic was bragging about that recently. So we're, she's awesome.
Yeah, she is. She said, thank you for saying that about narrative painting. She agrees 100% with what you just said. I always talk about you all the time to Alex. Dan this, Dan that. Dan taught me this. Dan, this is how you got to do the drawing. Leona. Hi, Leona Shanks. I don't know if you remember me.
Hey, Leona's here.
Dan, you are amazing and help so many people. But if you had no responsibility or obligations, how many hours would you like to be painting on your personal work on a weekly basis?
Oh, great question. I would take the time that I'm currently engaged in what I'm up to, because I have 4 really long, full, intense, loaded days a week of academic responsibilities. And then with the rest of the time, I'm generally preparing for lectures like this. This was easily, a good 3-4 hours of preparation to assemble all these images. But a lot of the lessons that you deliver, I think the students fail to recognize how much prep goes into them. And that's not to complain. It's just, I think if I had the time, I would take 4 really full days a week and give it to painting. And I would still take the other 3, and I'd spend much of it with the family, more than I can these days. And I would spend a lot of it reading. I've got a book that I'm really dying to get into, that I know will help me with my work, that will help me with my exploration. But things like those anatomical studies, I wouldn't stop doing those. They're so fascinating and so invigorating that I would still do them. And yet they count more as kind of research and investigation and really adventure drawing. And I think they support the prime artistic focus.
I think that's a good 1 day a week project, looking at your drawings and the cadavers. Certainly when things open up and you have that, I'm there, I'm coming. Um,
Please do. We'd love to have you. It's an awesome
I
experience.
definitely will be there. Somebody wants to know, for Jonathan would like to know, for Studio and Caminati program, does the program offer both fall and spring starts? And also someone wants to know if it opened yet.
We've been in person since August of last year. So we've also been doing online work, and we've been exploring not only doing virtual classes, but investigating a more intense and sort of a long-term distance learning project. And so we're in the kind of beginning stages of that. We're talking about people that are in places like Singapore that can't study it in Caminati. So we'd like to provide an education to those folks who really love what we love, but are just far away. So primarily, we are back in business in person, and we've been so, and we will continue to be so. We will be operating in the fall in person, in the winter in person. We're open. So come down and pay us a visit and just take a look around.
Jay Savoy, I don't know who that is, but he says, or she, no one prepares for lectures like Dan. Anita Clipson is here, and she said, will we be able to watch this again via recording to hear Dan's words of wisdom? Again, so helpful. Nice to be on Zoom session with you again, Dan. Yes, it will be on my YouTube channel and on Studio and Caminati. Jared will be editing that, correct?
He's
Yeah.
back there, yes. Yeah,
it'll
there he
be
is.
it'll be cleaned up.
Hi,
It'll be taken
Jared.
care of.
Yeah,
here.
so it will be available on my YouTube channel and on Studio Caminati's YouTube channel, Dan.
Yeah, we will definitely we'll get together and we'll do that. We'll make it happen. And thank you, James, for being here. We appreciate it. Jim is our illustrious and awesome president of Incaminati, and so we super happy that he's here. And Anita and I worked together last year with Anatomical Drawing, which was a pleasure. And she, I think, was taking the class in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm looking forward to seeing her graduate work coming up. So I'm excited about that. And thank you for your compliments on
She
anatomy.
messaged me and she told me she was a student of yours, Joshua Henderson.
Oh
We
my
got
God,
2
Josh
minutes,
is
guys. Yeah. So, hi, Dan. Thank you for being such a phenomenal example for all of us. I would love to hear your thoughts. What is the fundamental value of drawing and painting in society as we continue to evolve further into the digital age?
well.
Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I think Josh is a living example of this because the most recent piece I saw of his was that silver point that he did, which was just spellbinding. And I think that's a visual example of the way I'd like to formulate an intelligent answer to that wonderful question, which is that I think the further digital, clinical, synthetic we move, the more people value the handmade and will continue to value the handmade. Our only obligation and responsibility is to ensure that the things that we make stand the test of time, that they do not degrade in 10 years, because that's irresponsible, everybody. And we all know that we got to get better materials. So as you go forward and learn your craft, you have to study the intrinsic infrastructure of your paintings and of your drawings. And I think you trust in your vision because, your vision matters. It matters more than ever. I think when people look back at this, I hope that when people look back at this, they look back at our sense of what this age was all about. And maybe too postmodernist romantic of me to say that, but there are many different versions of reality going on right now, and everybody has their own take, and our perspective is going to matter a lot to them. In them being our families, them being the people that read about some of us in the future, or would like to know us better, see some of these, dried up recordings in 50 years when none of us are here, they're going to want to know what we thought about this age and where we figured we were going. And even if it's false, if we're genuine with ourselves and we make really resonant work, that work is going to be valued by somebody. And hopefully, it will be passed on in a way that your vision's appreciated and almost immortalized.
That's, yeah, that's all I could say. Absolutely. I mean, everybody has something to say, but I think, whatever time that we live right now, 100 years from now, people are going to want to see how we lived right now. Exactly what you said. Wow, thank you for that answer. That establishes such a strong foundation for us to build on. So it's 8:01. Here's how I would like to wrap this up now. I would like to say thank you to Dan. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight. This was such a great comeback. It's my second one, but I wasn't going to do them anymore, as you know, because I had a little bout there, but I'm good. And so you were like the first spotlight again. So thank you for being my guest. It was amazing. What I'd like to do, all of you that have come, thank you for coming. Your comments and texting me was really overwhelming. I hope I didn't forget anybody. I would like to coordinate something where we can go down to Studio Incaminati for the day, and maybe Dan for the PSOA New Jersey and PA members, maybe in the summer, whenever Studio Incaminati could do like a day, we will pay you for a workshop for the day at Studio Incaminati and have drinks on the roof. How's that sound? And if all of you are, if all of you are interested, please message me. You all have my email.
Yes, and as you all might have gathered, the most significant thing, skylights notwithstanding, and the rest of it, is that we found a building with a bar right above the art school. So we're all set, folks, and ready to go. You just have to join us. We'll take you through the school, and we'll go upstairs and all have drinks. And
that sounds perfect. So let me know like an availability for a one-day excursion to Studio Incaminati, in the summer.
Wait. You know what? Jim Savoy correctly noted that one of our proudest moments here is we're going to have the Bennett Prize show coming up, which is going to open this month. I think we're going to have a private opening, so I'm not sure if I'm, at
March 24th, Jim said.
Oh, March 24th. Okay, so
Hi,
then
Jim. Nice to meet you.
Jim is officially inviting all of you to the opening March 24th of the Bennett Prize. We're super excited to have the Bennett Prize artists, the winner of which was Annika Ingold, who was gracious enough to have me interview her for Incaminati. And I've just written the essay for the second Bennett Prize exhibition, which I was honored to do, and is coming up. The winner is going to be announced pretty soon, so keep an eye on that. That's going to be our first exhibition at Studio Incaminati, and we're really happy to spotlight women painters because I really think women painters are the future.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that, Dan.
I
No
mean,
matter what age we are, right?
What's that?
No matter what age we are.
Seriously, I mean, it's. I think it's hard to argue these days. So.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Dan. And in a few days, I will have this recording ready, so you can check my YouTube channel. Just Google my name, I'll come up, I promise. And Dan, you just let me know and I'll post it on the PSOA New Jersey members group. And Alex wants to know if it's going to be virtual, the Bennett Prize.
Yeah, thank you. I just clicked on the chat, Nancy, and it's going to be an in-person opening. It'll be distanced as an in-person opening, but again, it's sort of getting back to normal again, right? We've been cooped up,
Well,
So
you know what? If anybody from New Jersey wants to go to that, and Stephen Allen Bennett is attending with Elaine tonight. I know. I sent
wonderful. Outstanding. Great to hear.
Yeah. So I would love to support them. They're dynamite people. I really like them. And I haven't been out really, but if anybody wants to come and we could share the ride, that would be great. So let me know, guys.
Please come down. It's going to be phenomenal. And you know, ours is a community, and we're a very open community in terms of welcoming different creative pursuits, and that includes you. So stay in touch with us.
So yeah.
Yep.
So we got a couple of people. I think we'll probably go see the Bennett Prize.
Outstanding. Well, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate you being here. And
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Bye, Jared.